Aloha kako, aloha mai. Yesterday I talked about the story of Hawaii, and I want to continue that story because I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the stories of Hawaii, because it's a 110-year-old story, and some of those things that happened to us are happening today in Jeju and in Papua. So that story really is a story of loss, tremendous loss. And it was caused because people came and coveted our lands, and they came with their guns, they came with their religion, they came and changed the educational system and taught us how to be like them. And then they brought us capitalism, and worst of all, they brought us their diseases. So from all of that comes this story of loss. And for them, it was just a matter of manifest destiny. It was just going to happen no matter what, because that was going to be the future of the United States of America. So, you know, it's like when I listen to the stories from Papua and what is happening to them, it brings back the memories of the people that died during the overthrow. And it brings back memories about a population of 1 million Hawaiians going down to just 40,000 Hawaiians. It was like the story of the Holocaust here in Hawaii. To be able to lose that many people because of disease, and yet we still survived. So today, you know, we find ourselves in a situation where we're outnumbered. You know, we are a minority in our own lands. And worst of all, we're outgunned. The military has made sure that their might was on our islands, and that was one of the primary reasons why they wanted our lands. So today we find ourselves in a position saying, we want our lands back. We want our lands back. So in order to do that, you know, we have to do it in many different ways. There's not just one way that we're going to get our lands back. One of the ways is legal. We find ourselves in a position where we know that whatever is happening in Hawaii, it is totally illegal. We are under illegal occupation. There's been no annexation. There's been nothing legal about the takeover of our lands. Then some of us in Hawaii today work in the system. We had a Hawaiian governor, we have Hawaiian lawyers, we have Hawaiian doctors. They're all in the system. And many of them have come out of the university system. So the system itself turns out Hawaiians that can work in the system, and many of the problems is that, are they really Hawaiians? When I asked the question yesterday, you know, who am I? And I tried to answer it, and the person says, no, really, who are you? So in Papua, they're worried about their identity. And they should be worried looking at the lessons from Hawaii. They should be worried. Some of us, like myself, have tried to work in the system, and they spit us out. And we couldn't get in the system. So we decided to work outside the system. And it's important to work outside the system because that's where the people are. Because we cannot get our lands back and our sovereignty back without bringing the people along, the everyday person. So it's important to have the people, and it's also important to have the head. And many times today we find ourselves, the head people are talking, and they're talking a language of the international community on down, and it goes over our heads. So there's a disconnect. But it's important that both succeed. So we got to keep reminding ourselves over and over to not disconnect the top from the bottom. That we have to be patient enough to keep contact and to keep educating the people on the bottom. Then the question I ask is, why? Why do we want our nation back? Why do we want our sovereignty back? And I've been listening to stories, and I hear stories about all we're doing is replacing one bad system with another that is not quite as bad, but just as bad. So the question becomes, why? And the answer is because of what's happening to the people. There's suffering out there. The system is not working. There's inequities out there. There's too many poor, and there's too rich. So the system is broken. The worst part about all of this is what is happening to our islands, what is happening to our lands. That is the last straw. That is going to break the camel's back. And that is what is happening in Hawaii today. Our government has been taken over by these corporations, and they're demanding profits. And they're demanding the use of our public lands, the last of the lands that are available, and they're demanding to use the last of our resources. So that puts us in a situation where we understand, when you listen to all of the indigenous peoples, that when you fool with our resources, you are fooling with us. We are one in the same. There is no difference. So this panel is talking about resistance. And if you answer some of those questions, then it's obvious that you have to resist. There is no alternative but to resist. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that happened, on a personal level to myself, and it became, it's like I was like anybody else. I was in a pool hall shooting pool, trying to hustle the next guy. He was trying to hustle me, and life was going on. And then somebody came and asked us to go to the island of Kaha'olawe. And that just transformed my life into some other life that I still don't understand. But it became really clear about how you can actually kill an entire island. The United States military was taking an island, and they was doing something to it where that island was going to be useless to the future generations. There was going to be no soil. The surrounding reefs were going to be all dead. It was going to be useless. You can never bring it back to life again. It's going to become just a solid rock, and it was a huge island. So that relationship with Kaha'olawe was one where we had to go and take on the United States military. I mean, it was because we were young and we were so naive. It's like, yeah, so what? But listening to everything today, I look back and go, wow, the United States military, they're in Jeju, and they're building bases all over the world. I mean, these guys are huge. But we took them on. And we won because of one simple fact, that we were in love with this island. And we were committed that nobody can kill an island. It's just stupid. So we just had this commitment, and that commitment grew and grew the more you became involved. So resistance maybe start off small, but becomes greater and greater and greater. And it has to be a simple commitment, an honest commitment in order to get the rest of the population to join you. Because one or two people ain't going to do it. We all understand that. So lessons learned, we in the end were able to get the United States military to do something that they did not want to do. So there are lessons in that whole process that can allow us in the whole Pacific to be able to control this United States military. The problem I'm finding out through this get-together, this teach-in, is that the problem is bigger than the United States. The problem is corporations. It's this profit capitalist thing that has gone international, and it's all over the world. So I can't just now in Hawaii say, okay, we're going to fight the United States and we're going to get our sovereignty. It has to be a lot broader, and all of us realize that it has to be that broad in order for all of us to survive, because now the people that are in control are not just one government. They created these things called corporations where they made them people, and then they gave them laws and governances and protections to make them bigger than people. And yesterday this guy had a slide up there that showed that these guys were actually robots. And bigger robots than our government. So once you broaden that view, then we got to realize, in order for us to survive, we all have to work with each other. So for us as Hawaiians in Hawaii, we know we have to look for collaborations. Everybody in the Pacific is going to have to realize that they cannot do these things alone. We're going to have to get together. So whoever put this thing together, I think it's that guy with the white hair right here. This is the beginning of what we need to do. Otherwise, we may not be able to win our battles, and we may not be able to survive. So I came here not knowing, which way to turn, how to act, what to do, who was who. Moana Nui, is that Pacific guys, or is that also the Japanese guys, or the Korean guys, or the mainland guys? It's like very difficult to understand, because now we're broadening our vision. So I'm very glad I came, and I wanted to give a round of applause to this man over here in the white hair that allowed me to come here. So I wanted to tell you a story of GMOs, but the bell rang. And it's an important story because it's an exact example of what these corporations, who they are, and what they're doing to our people, our health, and our lands, and everything else. So please, because I don't have the time, you need to go and find out about these GMO stuff, because this is something that is going to affect all of us in the Pacific and all of us all over the world, because these are the corporations that we're talking about that are beginning to control the world, and these guys are controlling the food that we eat all over the world. So thank you very much, and thank you to the people who put this program together.